Hello class, my name is Jasmine Jimenez. Today is 16th of July and this is my Unit 4 Case Connections presentation. So, newborn girl, this is case number 1. Newborn girl appeared normal at birth, but within 24 hours she developed lethargy, hypothermia, and apnea. The attending physician suspects a metabolic disorder and orders a panel of labs, and full blood work that was ordered comes back, and the data presented shows that there is an initial blood ammonia level that was elevated and is rapidly increasing. So discuss the normal mechanisms of ammonia transfer in the body, and that should be occurring including these 3 enzymes. So ammonia is produced in nearly all the tissues in the body during the metabolism of amino acids and other compounds that contain nitrogen. So ammonia is loaded by glutamine synthetase and unloaded via glutaminase. Glutamine synthetase is a cytosolic enzyme that is essential in the cellular nitrogen metabolism, and it is the only enzyme that catalyzes the synthesis of glutamine from glutaminate and free ammonia ions in an ATP-dependent reaction. It plays a major role in ammonia detoxification and glutamine biosynthesis. Glutaminase is a mitochondrial enzyme that catalyzes the hydrolysis of glutamine to yield glutamate and free ammonia ions. It's an important reaction because glutamine acts as a carrier for ammonia to be transported into the TCA cycle. Glutamate dehydrogenase is an enzyme that serves in both catabolic and anabolic reactions. It catalyzes a reversible conversion of oxidative deamination of glutamate to alpha-ketoglutarate and ammonia, while also reducing NADPH to NADP plus to NADPH. The enzyme is also involved in the disposal of excess nitrogen and in glutamate biosynthesis. So, to further discuss the role of transamination, transamination is a cyclic process critical for amino acid metabolism. It essentially occurs when amino groups are removed from amino acids, and then it is further transferred to an acceptor keto acid. So this produces an amino version of a keto acid and the keto acid version of an amino acid, which is shown in the photo below. So this process is incredibly reversible, so the direction of the reaction is highly dependent on the concentrations of the substrate. How is nitrogen transport connected to gluconeogenesis in the fasted state? So sugars are derived, or glucose is derived from carbohydrates, and it offers an immediate energy boost or source of energy to the body. So any excess stores of glucose is then converted and stored as fat, and amino acids are an alternative source of glucose. So it can be converted into fat through glucose or directly from fat. And these stores can then later be used or oxidized into energy for the body. So once you are in a fasted state and glucose levels are low, glucose is then provided or created through a process called gluconeogenesis by non-carbohydrate sources, such as muscle amino acids and fatty acids. And key note is that the urinary urea is a main nitrogenous component. So once amino acids, being that it's an alternative source of energy, once it undergoes transamination, where amino acids are transferred to alpha-ketoglutarate to form glutaminate and release keto acids. As the brain begins to use more keto acids, hepatic gluconeogenesis and urea decrease. So, being that this occurs, the main nitrogenous component is no longer urinary urea. It now becomes ammonia, and this is then excreted through the urine. So further analysis shows that uric acid levels are elevated and plasma citrulline levels are remaining normal, but honestly within lower range of, the lowest is 12 and it's 10. So in this individual where uric acid levels are elevated, what urea cycle enzyme is most likely deficient and what enzyme is least likely to be impaired. So based off of what we think is the most likely deficient enzyme, to start off, the urea cycle is a main process that plays a critical role in the breakdown and excretion of nitrogenous waste from the body. And there are 5 enzymes that are included in the process as seen on the picture on the left. These enzymes are CPS1, OTC, AS, ASL, and arginase. So, being that the citrulline levels are kind of low and the uric acid levels are elevated, we can most likely resort to the deficiency in the enzyme being OTC. So OTC combines orthonine and carbamoyl phosphate to form citrulline. And a deficiency in this enzyme would usually result in a decreased production of citrulline, interruption of the urea acid cycle, and increased production of orotic acid, which is prevalent in the analysis that was shown before. And the enzyme that is least likely to be impaired in the urea cycle is AS, or argininosuccinate synthetase. A deficiency in this enzyme would cause an accumulation of high concentrations of plasma and urine citrulline, hyperammonia, and orotic aciduria. And the enzyme is also involved in the production of citric oxide and the cycling of arginine and citrulline. So being that the results don't necessarily coincide with what would result of a deficiency in this enzyme, we can kind of agree that the enzyme that is least likely to be impaired in this cycle is AS. And that image just shows what the enzyme does and how it transforms citrulline to argininosuccinate. And which amino acid, if any, becomes essential as a result of this deficiency? The amino acid would be arginine. Because of this deficiency, it is a precursor for citrulline. So arginine is, this pretty much means that arginine is needed to maintain a normal rate of protein synthesis. And so supplementing this into the diet will benefit those struggling with OTC deficiency. It is an intermediate that helps remove nitrogen through urea and can be produced from orthonine and citrulline in the intestines of all humans. It replenishes levels for the urea cycle so that it can function properly within the liver and dispose of nitrogen and ammonia effectively. And if arginine is missing, the intermediates from the urea cycle cannot be replenished, such as citrulline, and can ultimately lead to a severe hyperammonia. And second case is a 50-year-old woman, is in case number 4. She presented to the ED with progressive fatigue and weakness for the past 6 months. She's short of breath after walking several blocks and on a review of systems, she mentions mild diarrhea. She has noted intermittent numbness and tingling of her lower extremities, a loss of balance while walking. She denies any other neurological and cardiac symptoms and has no history of black or bloody stool or other blood loss, which is very important. On physical examination, she is tachycardic to 110 BPM. Other vital signs are within normal limits, and head and neck examination notable for pale conjunctivas and a beefy red tongue with loss of papillae, so it's very smooth. Cardiac examination shows a rapid regular rhythm and a grade 2 over 6 systolic murmur of the left sternal border. Neurological examination reveals decreased sensation, a light touch and vibration in the lower extremities. No depression noted. The hematology consultant on call is asked to see the patient because of low hematocrit level. Megaloblastic anemia is suspected. Very important. So which of the following vitamin deficiencies is a probable cause of this presentation? And there are 3 in question: iron, vitamin B6, and vitamin B12. And we will start with vitamin B12. A deficiency in this vitamin is when the body doesn't necessarily produce enough healthy red blood cells because it is developed abnormally. They are much larger in size and they aren't as round as regular red blood cells. They're more oval in size. So vitamin B12 is required to make red blood cells as it effectively carries oxygen through the body. So being that it is abnormally developed, it will result in megaloblastic anemia, which is suspected in this patient. Some symptoms are weak muscles, numbness and tingling of the appendages, trouble walking, nausea or decreased appetite, weight loss, diarrhea, smooth and tender tongue, fast heart rate. So we can agree that the vitamin deficiency in vitamin B12 is the most probable cause of this presentation, because the patient is suspected to have megaloblastic anemia and is also experiencing very similar symptoms, which is weak muscles, numbness, tingling in the lower extremities. She has trouble walking, says it. Oh my God, excuse me. She is having difficulty balancing. She's had some diarrhea, but no blood loss. She has a smooth, no papillae present, and tender tongue, and she is tachycardic, so she has a very fast heart rate. Vitamin B6 is a central vitamin in the cells of living cells and is found in many foods, as seen in the image on the right. It plays a very big role in the metabolism of carbohydrates, amino acids, and fats, as well as nerve function and the formation of red blood cells. So a lot of vitamin B6 deficiencies are kind of go hand in hand with other vitamin B deficiencies, but I don't really think that has anything to do with this case. Vitamin B6 deficiency also tends to result from an inability to absorb food, which will cause inflammation of the skin or dermatitis, and red, greasy, scaly rashes all over the body. Some symptoms include numbness and tingling of the appendages, tongue being sore and red, cracks forming on the corners of the mouth, confusion, irritability, and sometimes seizures. Based off of just the symptoms alone, I don't think this patient is necessarily suffering through this deficiency, and also the fact that it has something to do with other vitamin B deficiencies. I really don't think this has anything to do. She's dealing with some numbness and tingling. The tongue is a little sore, but she has no cracks, no seizures, no confusion. I think the other symptoms definitely go hand in hand way more with what is notable of just straight symptoms with the woman that presented into the ED. And lastly, iron aids in maintaining many bodily functions, such as the production of hemoglobin and maintaining healthy cells, such as hair, skin, and nails. This primarily comes from food and is absorbed into the lining of gastrointestinal tract, where it is then released into the bloodstream. A protein called transferrin attaches to the iron and then is delivered into the liver, where it is released to make brand new red blood cells in the bone marrow. So an anemia or a deficiency in iron is very common and is usually caused by great loss of blood. So women who deal with very heavy menstrual flow, or people who have gone through traumatic physical injuries where they did lose a lot of blood, is usually going to go hand in hand with an iron deficiency. And so symptoms of this condition are related to decreased oxygen delivery to the entire body because of that blood loss. Blood carries a lot of hemoglobin, which is a carrier for oxygen. So it makes sense. Some symptoms include being pale or having yellow sallow skin, fatigue, shortness of breath or chest pain, generalized weakness, rapid heartbeat, pounding in the ears, headache, craving for ice, sore, smooth tongue, brittle nails, or hair loss. So again, just based off of the symptoms and things that go hand in hand with this deficiency, I don't believe the patient is suffering from a deficiency in iron. She notes that she did not deal with any bloody stool, no blood loss in general, so that in and of itself proves that she has no iron deficiency, and plus the symptoms she wasn't really experiencing. So how does vitamin B12 impair purine and pyrimidine metabolism? So the coenzymes for this vitamin are required for purine synthesis, and megaloblastic anemia impairs DNA synthesis, leading to buildup in a cytoplasmic component, which causes cell division to slow down because of the larger size. So a deficiency in this will affect DNA synthesis because of the size. The size will slow down cell division, and also because of its size and abnormalities, a nuclear chromatin will have an altered appearance to it, as seen in this photo. So deficiency will result in the reduction of purine and pyrimidine biosynthesis and also DNA biosynthesis and cell division, which will ultimately also cause glossitis, skin changes, and flattening of the intestinal walls. And potential laboratory test findings that would assist in the differential will include complete blood count, peripheral blood smears, and bone marrow biopsies. So, for example, just to go over what blood tests would be used for the 3 vitamin deficiencies that we saw, patients with vitamin B deficiencies would include complete blood count and peripheral blood smear tests because it will help display signs of anemia. And in iron deficient patients, a complete blood count will be used to check hemoglobin levels, blood iron levels, and the protein ferritin levels. So to go over what each test is, a complete blood count is a blood test done to measure unusual increases or decreases in cell counts, such as red blood cells, white blood cells, hemoglobin, which is a big carrier for oxygen, like I mentioned before, hematocrit, which also was mentioned that the patient was dealing with low hematocrit levels, and platelets. Peripheral blood smear is a test used to examine red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets under a microscope to determine if there are any signs of abnormal blood cell activity, appearance, or numbers. They kind of go hand in hand. And a bone marrow biopsy is a test where a small needle is inserted into soft tissue in the center of a large bone, such as the femur, to extract a little bit of it. It helps check unexplained anemias, abnormal numbers of blood cells, and lack of iron in anyone's body. And all of them, I believe, go hand in hand in determining whether or not this patient is dealing with any of these. So thank you so much. These are my references, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening.